Today we're hunting a plant called spreading dogbane. The Latin name is Apocynon androsaemifolium. Let's have a look. So spreading dogbane is one of these super useful plants that's a little bit unusual in that what we use it for is for making really great cordage. And the way that I most commonly find it is driving through the roads of Alberta and noticing about the second week in August, or even in the first week, you start to see a plant in the ditches that's about knee height that's starting to turn yellow. It's usually, to me, the first indicator that winter's coming. It's the very first plant to start turning yellow in our area, and it likes kind of sunny areas, roadsides and ditches, but it also grows in the forest. So when you're driving through the roads of Alberta and you start to see these yellow plants in early to mid or late August that are suddenly turning yellow, you're probably looking at spreading dogbane. Here's a really great example of spreading dogbane in the ditches. And this is just, here I'll stop, just driving along, and in the midst of all that green, all of a sudden there's all these yellow plants. Spreading dogbane is a perennial plant, and it's branched towards the top. So if we take a look at it, there's a nice long stem coming out of the ground like that. And then it doesn't see branches until you get almost to the top. The leaves are opposite, and they're simple, egg-shaped to oblong, and they can be sharply and abruptly pointed on the very ends. Another thing we notice about the leaves is they have fairly short stalks, meaning that the little stalk here by my finger right there is quite short as far as leaving the stem and going to the actual leaf goes. The flowers, which we don't see now, are kind of a pretty little pink flower. They're bell-shaped. They smell nice. The fruit of the spreading dogbane are long, kind of cylindrical pods, very much like pea pods, but very, very skinny. When this plant is actively growing earlier in the year and the leaves are green and you slice the stem, you actually get a white milky sap, much like you do with dandelions when you break their stem or cut their stem open. And that's actually toxic to some people. It may raise blisters, but most people don't seem to have a problem. I certainly don't have any problem with it. I've picked plenty of it over the years. So the reason that I want to pick this today, and the most common use that I use it for, is to make super strong cordage. Cordage that you can snare rabbits with, tie anything together, and even make a bowstring that will withstand a lot of tension and a lot of weight pulled on that string. So I'm going to just cut a few of them. If there were seed pods here, I'd try to leave the seed pods behind, and hopefully they would then reseed this area. And I'm going to cut them with a knife. I'm not going to pull them out, because what we see happening is the plants keep coming up from the same base. So I don't want to eliminate the plant. I just want to take this year's growth. Whenever I'm picking this stuff, I try to locate the tallest growing ones, because we're making cordage. It's nice to have really long plants, and sometimes you get quite short ones like this one here, which isn't very long at all, and then right beside it is a much longer one. I've found them as high as my waist in the optimal conditions, and those are the great ones. Those are the ones that I really look for. So here we'll just give it a little snip like that. And as we have a look at that, just where I've just cut it, there's some of that milky sap coming out right there. You can see it on there. Yeah. So I like to pick it when I see it in the fall. It's easy to get the bark off at that time of year. Okay, so there's my little handful that I have. Now you can harvest this and make really strong cordage out of it in the winter or other times of year as well. I've found it in the dead of winter with no leaves on it, and just the skeleton is left, the kind of woody type skeleton is left, and I've picked it and made cordage out of it. But I find the bark a little tougher to get out and process at that time of year. At this time of year, to me, it seems to be ideal. Anytime from mid-August right through until October, November is a really great time to pick this stuff, especially because you can see it quite readily with those nice yellow leaves. As we pull to a stop, you can see there's a bunch of spreading dogbane as well, right here along the edge of the road. It's the yellow stuff, and that's how to find it. So here in my hand is some fresh spreading dogbane that was just cut, and it's got some of that milky latex right there on my finger. And you can see that it's nice and fully round. Okay, and then right here is some that has dried out. This one is actually from last year, and if I put the two side by side, you can really see the difference. It's the exact same plant. The one on the left right here is fresh and succulent, and this one is last year's plant, and it's very thin and it's very dried right out. And it's much harder to get the bark off the ones that are dry. And so here's a stack of dried ones from previous picking a year ago. These will be much easier to process than these ones, and so that's another reason why I like to pick them in August or early September before they start to dry out and become like this. So really, when they're most visible is the best time to pick them, at least in my experience. So the technique for splitting them that I use is, this one's already been split, but what I do is I put my finger and thumb alongside of it and simply push the plant like this so that it splits it nicely down the center. And sometimes I'll even touch these two thumbs together and I'll just kind of inch it forward. And what we want to do is split it as evenly down the center as we can, so that it creates two nice equal halves. Okay, so here's a nice piece. What we want to do is, there's the bark that we're after. That's the finished stuff. That's really nice right there. So basically I'm going to split it, a little piece like this, and work it back on itself. See how that's peeling right off nicely? And sometimes it pays to come from both ends so that you take that part right off and discard it. If you try to take too much at once, you'll often get tears and you'll lose a lot of that valuable bark. So I'm going to just be careful. It's a bit of a tedious process. There, see, I almost lost some of the bark, so it's good that I worked it from both ends and didn't lose any in that case. There we go. And I'm just going to keep working it on all the pieces that I've collected in this same manner until I've got a bunch of that nice bark. And then at this point I can let that dry out, or I can work on it immediately. Alright, so there we have a bunch of the bark that's prepped and ready to go. And it's starting to get dark, so I'm going to let those dry out, and then I can buy myself some time until we do the rest of this video, in which case I may soak them just a little bit to make them easier to work with. And we'll start twisting up a snare cord for a snowshoe hare. So here's the cordage that I made using those pieces of outer bark from the inner dogbane. And it is, if I keep pulling, it's about 36 inches long, so around a meter long. Actually, it's longer than that, about 1.5 meters long, made from those few spreading dogbane plants that I collected. And I just used the reverse wrap method. It's a little bit fuzzy, but it's very strong. So I can really reef on that. And this is going to become a snare for snowshoe hare rabbits. Let's just look up a little bit closer at it. All right, there. So you can see it's a little bit fuzzy, and there's the nice reverse wrap method. And the nice color that it turns out. Kind of a rusty brown kind of a color. And I usually take it and I rub it over a stick back and forth, you know, and create a little bit of friction and kind of soften it up a little bit. That just makes it tie a little bit smoother and easier. But even at this stage right here, without softening it or working it, it's quite nice, and it would hold a loop quite nicely for a snowshoe hare, just like that. Cool. I hope you learned something about spreading dogbane, and I hope that you find some in the ditch or in the forest, and you too can make some amazing, strong, super strong cordage from spreading dogbane.